The dark young bleated and charged at Curelum. Curelum's tail struck a dark young dead center and gouged out part of its body, and its terry blood spewed forth. However, it trembled for only a moment, and then its thick legs trod the ground firmly, with hardly any decrease in its forward momentum. What? Perhaps it had thought the dark young would have been sent flying, or that it would disappear like the other demons. The dark young closed in on Curelum as it spoke in a confused voice, and they collided. It was Curelum who was knocked back. The dark young surrounded it and made their move, striking Curelum countless times with their tentacles, some of them even moving up to bite it. "Don't look down on me." Surrounded by the dark young, Curelum twisted and dodged like a cat, using its wings, tail, legs, and fangs to counterattack. Just then, Suzuki Satoru cast a spell on him. He no longer needed to pretend that he was too arrogant to cast spells. Now, he would seal off his opponent's choices and lead him onto the path he had prepared. The spell Suzuki Satoru had cast was Lopsided Duel. It was a third-tier spell. It bound the caster to the target, such that whenever the target tried to flee by teleportation, both caster and target would appear in the same place. It could even ignore the target's use of delayed teleportation and teleport both of them to the designated location. However, this spell had a fatal flaw. If the target teleported among its friends, then the caster would be brought to the same place thanks to the binding, whereupon he would be surrounded. That was why such a seemingly useful spell was found in the third tier. Before it was patched, one could cast it on a teammate and piggyback off their teleportation, but after the patch it could only be cast on enemies. Of course, if Curelum decided to teleport to the Brightness Dragon Lord or a similarly potent Dragon Lord, immediate escape would be his top priority. As the name Lopsided Duel implied, this spell had the advantage that if the caster teleported away, his opponent would not be teleported with him, which made fleeing easy. Next, the guild's staff also cast a spell. It was the 8th tier spell Dimensional Lock. While demons, angels, and other outsiders often use this ability as a skill, this spell had the same function. This spell prevented instantaneous movement through means such as teleportation outside its area, but it did not hamper physical movement. In order to avoid this, he had to keep an eye on every move that Curelum made. Curelum was within the area of the Dimensional Lock. If it tried to escape the area and teleport away, Lopsided Duel would take effect. Suzuki Satoru and the guild's staff had constructed a magical prison. The Dark Young served as a physical prison. It would seem the Dark Young found the demons attacking them bothersome. While they had been summoned by the same caster, the demons summoned through Armageddon Evil were valid targets for attack. However, that was the reason why summoned monsters could coexist. Since he could not give orders to the demons, who were not under his control, he had no choice but to instruct the Dark Young to bear with it. Suzuki Satoru ordered the Dark Young to bear with it, because the demons can do you much harm, even if you don't defend against them, and then cast a spell. Triplet Maximize Magic Reality Slash. The attack spell of the highest order ripped into Curelum's body. This was probably the most damage it had taken in all its battles to date, and Curelum's eyes looked like they were trying to burn through Suzuki Satoru. The guild's staff cast a spell imbued within the Sun Gem Shining Blast. This was an area of effect attack spell, which did extra damage to evil creatures, and the undead, with more damage the lower their karma value was. In turn, as their target's karma increased, it would do less or no damage to them. Of course, the Dark Young would also be harmed, being that Curelum was in their midst. However, the karma value of the Dark Young was 0, despite their appearances, so they did not take much damage. However, the demons which had taken damage from the area effect began to consider the guild's staff as an enemy. That said, since the staff was considered part of their summoner's equipment, and the demons were bound by the sole rule of do not attack your summoner, they did not attack it. The way the demons redoubled the intensity of their attack on Curelum and the Dark Young might make one think that they were venting their frustration. "Oh. You filth." Curelum's voice sounded strained. It was in check now. A minor level difference meant nothing as the last piece fell into place. However, it would be a different matter if Curelum had been a certain other individual that Suzuki Satoru knew. It was precisely because Suzuki Satoru knew that tank, a monster who could make their attackers wonder exactly how they had been damaged, that he did not ease up. Triplet Maximize Magic Reality Slash. He kept casting the most powerful attack spell he knew, because he was determined not to give the enemy time to catch its breath, and to defeat it here. At the same time, the guild's staff cast a spell. Summon Primal Fire Elemental. The flames that spiraled into the sky reached a full 6 meters in height, and then slowly condensed into a humanoid shape. This was the best move he could make, by further solidifying his advantage. While Suzuki Satoru had wanted to do such a thing himself, he could not do so, much to his regret. The summoned Primal Fire Elemental worked its way between the Dark Young, and punched Curelum with flaming fists. Triplet Maximize Magic Reality Slash. The guild's staff cast the 9th tier divine spell Crack in the Ground. Just as Kino was wounded by the reality slash, the ground split open and a fissure gripped Kino's leg, leaving him stuck there like an animal in a bear trap. The instant death effect had not activated, as he had expected. However, the damage over time and movement impediment effects should have applied. Well, he did not know how fissures could form on a desert, such was the effect of the spell. I've won, no. Suzuki Satoru immediately tensed up in the moment he felt himself relax. It was true that Kino ought to be out of options given the present circumstances. Even Touch Me would not probably be able to break out of this. But it would be a different matter if Kino still had a trump card in store. It was much like the battle with the brightness Dragon Lord. Dragon Lords of that level had a super move in the form of wild magic. He could not lower his guard yet. As the guild staff cast its attack spells, Suzuki Satoru observed Kino's rear, its right, above it, and then put a bracelet on. How well would his own ace in the hole be able to adapt to the circumstances, and what kind of play would his opponent make? This ought to be the moment that determined victory and defeat. Kino, I'll safely return to your side. Why? Kino thought amidst the chaos. Why had he been driven to such desperate circumstances despite his immaculate planning? The Dragon Emperor's filth. Why had he, the most self-sacrificing of the 6 dragons that had prepared to annihilate the masterminds who had polluted this world, been forced into a situation like this? The answer was very simple. Kino knew that foes of its level existed, but it had never fought them. In the past, it had avoided entities on the same level as Suzuki Satoru. That was not because it was weak, but because its intelligence had told it that they could not be beaten. It was because it had been so intelligent that Kino had lost the chance to understand and learn. The importance of prior preparation. The right way of using power. The importance of swallowing one's pride and working with others. It had not understood any of that. Suzuki Satoru and Kino. Those were the differences between these two mighty beings. While it had been a game, Suzuki Satoru had accumulated vast amounts of experience in battles with his equals, and he understood the importance of fighting with his friends. In turn, Kino knew nothing about these. If Kino had some relevant experience, it would not have been reduced to this state. It might have been able to kill Suzuki Satoru. But it did not. Therefore, it was only natural that Suzuki Satoru, who had analyzed his foe's abilities and made preparations to guarantee his victory, should be able to triumph. However, that was only in theory. One could not simply conclude that in reality. There was also the difference in their individual power. It was just like how an ant could not hope to bother an elephant, no matter how hard it prepared. The difference in individual power could become the ultimate obstacle. Dragons were still the mightiest species even after becoming undead, because their basic abilities far exceeded those of Suzuki Satoru. And true Dragon Lords all possessed a certain mighty power. In Kino's case, he had been honing that power, preparing to deal with players. That was the reason Kino had made himself this way. Wild magic. The wild magic that Kino could use was considered the most vicious of all the spells that the Dragon Lords could cast. Naturally, it required a massive price to be paid. But as Kino sensed that it would be destroyed if this kept up, it cast the spell. Kino opened its mouth. It was not in the way that a serpent would swallow its prey. Its mouth gradually split open, until the fissure reached its long neck. The split portion hung down, as though to make a gigantic maw several dozen meters wide, in order to devour everything, and then, it spewed forth from that massive mouth. Soulbreaker Breath. It was a wild magic spell considered to be on par with the world-class item Longinus. It was an irresistible power that would discorporate the soul of anything it touched. This utterly malignant power consumed everything present. Kino's eyes went white as she looked at the black orb floating over the mountain. She could tell that it was huge, even from a great distance. What was that? What on earth had happened? Question after question piled on top of each other, but in the end, the most important one was what kind of power could have created something that frightening. Was it a secret technique wielded by Suzuki Satoru, her traveling companion? Or was it the power of the mysterious person who had taken Kino's country, Kino's family, Kino's everything away from her? Regardless of what it was, this was not something that Kino's own power could hope to achieve. This was the nigh miraculous power wielded by those faraway individuals who stood upon the apex of the world. It would be good if that was Suzuki Satoru's power. No, it was not good. It would mean that Suzuki Satoru, who could casually crush any foe he encountered apart from the brightness Dragon Lord, had encountered someone who warranted the use of that power. In other words, Suzuki Satoru's opponent was as strong as he was. Suzuki Satoru's might was beyond question. He was a person she had spent the most time with other than her family, and Kino had learned that much about him over the course of 5 years of travel. He had many flaws. He had terrible taste in naming. He laughed at the strangest things. He treated the living badly. He made up incredible stories at the drop of a hat. He would gladly sacrifice the lives of others for himself and for Kino. He was a very cruel person. Even so, he had many virtues. He was very polite to everyone. He was very curious. He always looked forward to the unknown and things he had encountered for the first time with a sparkle in his eye. At some point, he had learned how to properly comb out her hair. He treated her as an equal, even though she was weak and could only hold him back. And most importantly, he was very kind. Kino hugged her flat childlike chest, which would never grow. He was a man who could protect her while fighting against an incredible monster like the Brightness Dragon Lord, and who had managed to retreat safely from it in the end. Surely he would be able to return safely to her side as well, right? Even if she believed it, no, even if she wanted to believe it, she could not help but feel uneasy after seeing such great power. You'll come back, right? You'll return safely to me, right? He was the one who had saved her, after she had lost everything. He was the one that she believed would continue saving her. Kino Fazher Sinvern had gained eternal life. As a being detested by the living, even if she made living friends, they would eventually die before her. And then, when she was like this, that night had come. Being able to meet him in the city was great good fortune. He would walk with her towards eternity. He would never let her feel the loneliness of being abandoned in this world. Her meeting with him was destined by fate. But now, he was not by her side, and he might abandon her at any moment and flee. This uneasiness tormented Kino. He had gone out there for her. Kino knew that very well, and she was very grateful for it. Do your best, Sator. Kino prayed. She had once believed in the gods, but after becoming undead, the gods in her heart had died as well. She understood one thing, which was that no matter what prayers one might have, the gods would not answer them. Therefore, her prayer was directed to one person only. The only person who had eased her pain. Her prayer was to Suzuki Sator alone. Please return safely to me.